All right, y'all good?
Gucci.
Yeah.
All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, episode 14 of the Babel Pod. We are here, of course, with the normal crew, got Kyra and Lawrence. And our wonderful, I'm sorry, it's a bus. Our wonderful guests are Shawnee Johnson and Erin Cuff. So thank you two for joining us today, and I hope y'all are doing well. And today we'll kind of get into, just with you two, just your background in social work and, just being in that field and just how you all have navigated as Black women, and especially during these times. Oh, what happened? I don't know what's going on. All right, so Zoom. But yeah, so just navigating, the industry, and also these times in particular, just, in the height of racial injustice and other injustices as well. So yeah, so without further ado, so Shawnee and Erin, could y'all tell us a little bit about yourselves and how y'all got into social work?
Yeah. Just want to say again, thank you for having us. It's my first time on a podcast. I'm like, oh.
Really? Hey, that's
yeah, so I am a social worker. My job title specifically is a life skills counselor. I work for a nonprofit here in the Valley in Pennsylvania, where I serve under just underrepresented. I can't talk. Underrepresented youth that are in the foster care system. So I'm working with teens that are in different foster care placements, and I've been here in my job for like a year and some change. I studied sociology, but I'm here doing social work. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. How about you, Erin?
And so for me, I'm Erin. Thanks again for having me on. Also my first time on a podcast. So actually, I'm not a social worker. I am in the mental health field, but it's like we can do kind of like some of the same stuff, but like I'm not a social worker.
Okay.
So I got my undergrad in human services, which is basically you can do like advocacy or work with people who have different mental health diagnoses, or work with people like nonprofits and things like that. But I'm currently getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling. Okay. So I want to be a therapist. Social workers can be therapists as well, but for me, like they can do more things. For me, I just want to be a therapist. Okay. So right now I am working as my title is QMHP, so a qualified mental health professional. I work with both adults and children. I've worked in group settings. I've worked in substance abuse settings, like rehabilitation settings. I've worked with families, individuals. Right now, I don't have a heavy caseload. Like I have a client that's a child. And so because of that, like I work with his family as well. Because when you work with a child, by extension, you work with the family unit. And so, yeah, I'll be finished with my program next year, the end of next year. So yeah, that's where I'm at so far.
Cool. Yeah, and my mistake, I didn't mean to lump you into social work. So that was my mistake. But nonetheless, what y'all do is essential to, very essential, just to society. And it sounds like cliche, but it is, because, you all are essentially just those building blocks for folks to grow and develop, and and to better adults, to better children, and eventually adults. So salute to you guys for doing what you do. So what are some challenges, just as Black women that you face, as opposed to, to your white or other POC counterparts? So what are some challenges exclusively that you all face, just in your respective fields? And that could be like the culture, or it could be a combination of actually doing the work as well. So it's,
I think so for the agency that I work for currently is predominant, like it's Black owned.
Okay.
And so with that, most of the people in my agency are Black women. There's a few Black males, and then we have one person who's not Black. And so, yeah, I feel like that's kind of been cool because like there's not those microaggressions. Like we get it because we experience the same things. I mean, granted, like we're different, we come from different backgrounds and stuff like that. So I feel like on the agency side, it kind of works so far. I start my practicum next semester, and so I'll be working in a different field, and that'll be the first time I've really worked in the mental health field outside of with just Black people for the most part. So ask me in a few months, and I'm sure it'll be a different answer. But I think as well, even working with the clients, I have had people ask me, like one of my clients, his mom was like, because I was like, hey, like y'all should probably go to family therapy. And she was like, isn't that just a white people thing? And I was like, no, ma'am, it's not just a white people thing. I was like, a lot of Black people can benefit from it, and just kind of talk to her even about like generationally, like the trauma that Black people have gone through and some of the, and she found it to be a benefit for her and for her family. But I think just even as a Black person, kind of debunking those myths, I feel like is a challenge for me as a Black woman. Yeah, and even just the fact that I'm young as well. I'm 25, but people think I'm like 16 or 18 or 20. Like people just never really know. And so I feel like as well with that, I've kind of had to make sure that people understand that no, like I'm very qualified in what I do. I'm not going to be taken advantage of just because I look young or because I am young or younger than you. And even like just being a Black woman that grew up in an upper middle class family and working with people who are predominantly in a lower socioeconomic status. I think that's even been a different element because like, I'm like, okay, like don't bring my middle class bias into my workspace while working with my clients. But then also not trying to like, even balancing like, though we're both Black, different levels of code switching, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And so I feel like even that has helped me to, like working in this job and working with the clients that I work with has taught me a whole bunch and even made me confront some of the biases that I had, even with, like with Black people within different economic statuses, if that makes sense. So.
It's like I know exactly what you're saying.
I think for me, there are different types of challenges. So I live in an area that is predominantly white. And then this like the second most populated demographic are those who are like Latinx or just Hispanic. So the amount of Black people that I see is it's just different. And so I am the only Black woman in my program, specifically for like my county. I have another friend who's Black who's in we're we're in the same program, but it's like we're the Black woman for each of our programs. And so when I saw that, often like just from the jump, I kind of thought to myself like, am I the token Black woman? Like, but just like, you know, okay, how can I make the most out of this? Because the youth that I'm serving are, you know, they're predominantly Black and brown. I do have white like teens that I work with, but at the same time, a number of them are Black and brown. So that just is kind of hard because I'm like, okay, can kind of relate to some of their experiences. And there's moments where I can kind of feel like, okay, this is like, I don't know, like I feel as though I can relate, but then at the same time, just trying to sometimes connect with my coworkers about things because I sometimes their experience is different because they are white. And there's moments where I feel a bit different. So it's just kind of like, okay, how can I make the most out of this? And growing up, I grew up in the DMV, so moving to where I am is just very like, oh, this is just different. Like it's weird. And I think there's an expectation, I think, for myself that I have to excel and like perform in a way that's like, okay, I'm the only Black person, and so I just have to do well. And then I think just in the age that we're in right now, it's just felt really hard. Like there's just been moments where I'm like calling in Black. I'm like, I just can't work today. I'm just tired. I'm emotionally spent.
Yeah.
And feeling kind of weird because I'm like, can my coworkers relate to that? Like, I know they see these injustices, but it's like, this could be me. This could be a family member of mine. So that's kind of hard. And similar to what Erin was saying, like just being young, like I think there's that relatability piece, like, oh, she's young, so she gets it. But at the same time, it's like, I always question, like, are people gonna take me seriously? Like, are the families gonna take me seriously because I'm young and I'm Black? Like, they can't tell how old I am. I'm 25 as well, but it's still kind of like, yeah, I don't know. So I think just also just trying to figure out, like, okay, figuring out my counseling style and things like that. And the need to code switch as well, like, okay, how Black can I be with certain people in my program, whether it be the client and then also my coworkers. And we've been talking about race, so that's also been kind of like awkward in certain moments, but like, yeah, so there's different challenges depending on the day. So
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot of, in addition to doing the work, it seems like there's a lot of, what is going on? I'm bugging out. All right. Y'all can hear me, right?
yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of mental gymnastics in addition to simply just doing the work. You know what I mean? Just, you know, how both of y'all mentioned code switching and also dealing with like the ageism factor too. So it's, you know, it just seems like there's so many barriers to actually getting to the work itself, you know what I mean? And it's all things that are really out of your control, because it's like, all right, how do I navigate? How do I relate? How do I, how do I connect and gain that respect from, you know, from your clients and from their families and what have you? So So I can imagine that's extremely difficult and tiresome in itself. And, and just in light of like the times we're in, Shawnee, with you being in a predominantly white space, and Erin, I know you said where you work, it's predominantly Black. So what's been, what have those environments been like during this time, and how has it, because it was at its point, I think, when George Floyd, obviously when George Floyd was murdered, and about a month or two, that's all you saw on the timeline and what people were talking about, and what those what corporate America was trying to support and talk about, and then now it's slowly kind of pulling away from that conversation. So I guess what's been that your work culture been like over the last couple of months in relation to what's been going on?
I'll go first. I guess for me, so when the whole George Floyd incident, like when he was murdered, I had just been on vacation and I felt burned out, came back from vacation and then heard the news, and I was just like, I felt so defeated all over again. And I was just like, I'm so tired. And I remember kind of having a conversation with a coworker who said, I said that, oh, like I just feel really like low and down, and it's just a lot. And they kind of were like, yeah, no, I get it. But they also said like this, like, it doesn't affect us. And like, they just kind of casually said, oh, it doesn't affect us. And that kind of stuck with me because I'm like, but it does. Like, it may not affect you because your experience is different, but me as a Black person, like, it does. And so that was kind of just trying to like process that. And when the whole thing happened, honestly, we didn't have a clear, pointed conversation about it in my program. And it was kind of weird. It was like this elephant in the room. And it also made me just think like, why are we not talking about it? Like, I know I was processing it, but I decided to like write an email to my supervisor and just kind of say like, it's been a month and we haven't exactly talked about it. And this is hard for me. And it's like, how can we serve this population that are more likely to end up being affected by this justice system that, is going to screw them over? And like, how can we have these conversations? And I kind of felt a weight of just like, this is a lot and I don't want to be the only person. But thankfully, I've been able to find allyship with certain people within my job. And that's been helpful because I'm just like, I'm not white. And some people will never hear what I have to say. Like, they'll discount it, they'll dismiss it. But like, you have power that I can't have. And so that's also been just trying to navigate like, okay, how do I just keep going? But it's definitely been hard. Like, I've just felt emotionally exhausted lately on from the injustices, but also like just life and other things and just grieving different things. So it's like, this is hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Erin, how about you?
For me, I think in the heat of all of that stuff, well, for one, like, I don't really get to see my coworkers that much anyway. Even before all this stuff was going on, because we just like, we meet people in their homes, and so like by extension, like, we're not in the office too often. But we did have different Zoom staff meetings and stuff like that because of the like COVID and stuff, like we were no longer going into people's houses. We were just doing things telehealth. And so, basically just on Zoom and things like that, or FaceTiming or talking to our clients on the phone. And so like it was brought up a few different times, like in meetings, the tone was down, like it was like we were there to talk about work stuff, but my supervisor just kind of was like, hey, make sure as you're servicing your clients that like you've got to promote self-care, and I think in school that's something like they just kind of drill into us, self-care, but that stuff is real, and so just making sure that even because being in social work or being in the mental health field, we deal with people's emotions a lot on top of having our own stuff, so and then once people know that you're in the field, then they come to you too, because usually people in this field are helpers. And so it's like during that time, and stuff has died down, of course it's still prevalent, but it was exhausting. Like even talking to, I was like, man, I don't want to talk to my clients. I'm like, I don't want to, there's nothing against them, but it's just like being in that collective grief space I was in a spot where for the first time, because usually I'm the one, I'm like, man, like I want to educate people. I want to help people understand. But for the first time, I was like, that's not where I'm at. Like, I don't want to help you understand, And so I felt like my emotional space was depleted way past. Way past. I was in the negatives, like, and so I think as far as my work environment, that was the extent of it, but even like as well, like I'm a graduate assistant. And so like I worked for a professor at my university, and there was some stuff I was behind on. Like I remember one day I just was feeling really, really bad about everything going on. And I think it was maybe shortly after George Floyd, because the Ahmaud Arbery case like hit me really hard. And then, so it was like Ahmaud Arbery and that whole week just grieving, and then Breonna Taylor, and I was like, I don't have the emotional capacity to even look into this right now. And then I started to feel a little bit better, and then George Floyd, and I was just like, I'm done. Like I don't know what else. Like I don't have it in me. Yeah. And so then it's like I had my job where I'm like having to service clients and stuff, which is difficult. Like that's a difficult task anyway, but then having another job where she's like, Erin, like, where's this assignment? And this woman, she's a great boss, but like she's white. And so I was like, I wanted to be like, sis, today is not the day for you to be asking for these assignments. But, I'm like, all right, like I just have to suck it up and do it, So I think even that, like being in that space where I feel emotionally bent, but I still have stuff to do and the world hasn't stopped. And so like I have to keep pushing type thing. So I feel like overall, that's just kind of been what my work environment has been like.
Yeah, I feel you 100%. Kyra, is there anything? I know you had a couple of questions you need to ask.
First of all, I just want to say thanks so much for being here, ladies. It's so good to see you guys. And I think just especially, that's just what's so unique about our podcast in general. Like, I think, yes, like we, like over a span of time have just been trying to be more inclusive, but it's just nothing like Black people and nothing like Black women. So it's good to see you guys. But I think something that I've been realizing for myself, and so I think it's been cool to kind of even like have us kind of do this particular podcast. It's just the amount of like labor that Black people do in general, particularly in this country. And I don't know if you guys like ever feel this way, but sometimes it feels like our paychecks just don't even like amount for the amount of labor like we just do just in general, and then just like add that up. Just like kind of add that up with like, okay, like you're doing like physical labor for your job, but then it's like emotional, mental, sometimes even spiritual labor like on your job. And it's not something you included on your resume. It's not something that's like, being factored into your finances. So kind of sometimes feeling like you're being used, like overly excessively being used. Just not just so much even in your job, but just like in the world. And then I think even kind of even what you're saying to Erin of just feeling like you just don't want to explain, you don't have the bandwidth. So it's kind of like even when you're experiencing like trauma on a national scale, especially with like a national virus, like, a whole pandemic, you're kind of still having to like do labor and it's never like a restful day for you. So I think like my question, one of my questions that I have for you guys is just like, what is it like just like being a Black woman constantly feeling as if like your body, mind, soul, and spirit is always like up for grabs, with no financial compensation as like in a way as well?
Great question. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm trying to think, like, if I'm honest, both of my jobs are super flexible. So I'd be chilling, to be honest. So I think it's a little bit different for me in that way because, I mean, I work for sure, but it's just super flexible. And so I don't think for me that's where I'm at, because though I have two jobs, I'm not working full time. You know what I mean? Like I have other outside responsibilities, and like I think even in the like with all of these things that are going on, I was just asked to do a lot of stuff because people know, I guess maybe this can tie into your question. People know how passionate I am about Black stuff, and injustices and mental health or whatever. Like they just know how passionate I am. And so this year alone, I've been asked to be on to help one of my professors with some research that she's conducting on it's like a tongue twister, but it sums up to like the powerlessness that African American counselor educators can feel at their universities. And so I was like helping her with the transcripts and stuff for that before all of the COVID stuff and before all of the like the Black Lives Matter movement for 2020 picked up. And so I was helping her with that. And then this happened and I was like, you know what? Like I can't do this right now. And she understood and the professor that I was doing it for, she's a white woman. She's amazing. And she got this grant to do this research. And so she was like, Erin, can you help me with this research? I was like, yeah, of course. So it was like that. And one of my old high school teachers was putting together this committee to kind of help dismantle the systematic racism within my high school. And so I've been doing that every week. So it was just those things on top of my jobs, on top of personal things. And I was like, and we in the pandemic, you know what I mean? Yeah. And Black lives are still being destroyed and people are using that for political gain. And so I think, or for monetary gain or for clout and, just all of those things. And so there were some things that I had to take a step back on, with the research. As much as I loved it, I was like, I'm not in a good place to do that right now. And she understood. As far as you said, taken advantage of for my mind, body, soul, and spirit type thing.
And I just want to clarify, because I think I hope the question makes sense, but I think also too, for some women, that experience may not look maybe as drastic or as traumatic as it does for some. But I do think in some way, shape, or form, whether it's even just by friends and family, co-workers, or just whatever, in some way, shape, or form, it's almost kind of it's in some way, shape, or form, it's almost kind of like there is sometimes this like unspoken expectation that like a Black woman in a way is supposed to do some form of labor, particularly even if it's just emotional labor in a lot of ways, if that makes like sense.
Yeah. And I think there were aspects where I felt that for sure, like with people, like people were just coming to me out the woodworks to want me to be a part of different forums, and there were times where I just didn't even text back because I'm like, I just can't, you know. I think as far as I had a lot of Black men come to me at that time in the heat of everything, and that to me I held very sacred, you know what I mean? Like, because I know for a lot of Black men, it takes a lot to open up emotionally, you know what I mean? And so even the moments when I was just drained and emotionally exhausted, I remember going to a protest and that was just enough for me. Like I was just done after that emotionally. But then still after that, like a friend had called me, it was like 10 o'clock at night. He was like, hey, and he never calls me. He was like, I just need to be able to talk through this. But still having that space, you know, like I didn't mind, you know? And so I definitely feel what you're saying, Kyra. I do feel like there is an emotional labor that can be expected of Black women. And it, for me, like it just depends on the space and the person, but like with, I'm just really protective over Black people out, you know, but especially Black men, but for that space, I'm okay with that. But when I just feel like folks are, you know, I don't know, it's just a kind of a weird thing. I don't want to ramble, but I think it just kind of depends on the person and the place. Because in those situations, especially with those Black men, I felt like it was an honor to be able to help them in that way or to hold that space for them. But as far as the different expectations that people had of me, I had to set boundaries as far as what I could and could not handle. That makes sense.
Thanks for sharing that, especially.
Yeah, that's such a deep question, Kyla. But it's a really good question. I think similar to what Erin was saying, it depends on the space and the person that you're with, because some people are more empathetic than others. So on top of being a social worker, I'm also like co-leading a ministry. Like I'm helping to lead a campus ministry, and so that in itself is already like it's, you know, just another form of giving, and giving spiritually and trying to be wise, and I think like I'm pouring into people, into these teams at work, and then also trying to pour into others in our ministry, and aside from just like, you know, keeping up with friendships and just family, and trying not to feel guilty for not succeeding in certain things. I struggle with the guilt at times because I'm just like, I can't be everywhere. I'm not God, but I try to act like I am at times. I think it's hard doing the emotional labor because I think right now more than ever I've just felt more emotionally spent, and I think like I've just been learning how to honestly embrace these uncomfortable moments, and like sit in it, because I think I want to like, okay, I sat in it, all right, I gotta go and like do something else, and like I feel the need to be doing something. Like I have to be a busybody, and like that doesn't even mean I'm being productive. I'm just like trying to be a busybody, and like I need to go help someone else. I need to go do something. I can't I don't want to take the time sometimes to process some of the things that are going on because it's just too much. Similar to like what Erin was saying about just like, okay, hearing about this person being murdered was a lot, and then like I can't even give to even think about someone else because it's just so much. And I think like there's always this, I guess maybe it's an expectation for myself that I'm like, I have to still be okay and like kind of give the answer that like, yeah, I'm okay. And I'm trying to learn to just be a bit more thoughtful of not saying like, oh yeah, I'm good when I'm really not. So yeah, I definitely think, just to answer your question, it's been challenging just doing the labor. I feel as though like I have a supportive like team at my job, and I have supportive people like when it comes to ministry. But it's still just like, I think when I'm by myself alone, like there's still this like level of like, I gotta go do something. Like I struggle with just being still. So I feel like there's always something that can be done.
Thanks for answering those questions, ladies. I really appreciate it. They were very thoughtful and even just like helpful for me as well. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very deep question, Karen. And yeah, so yeah, I thought you had more questions you wanted to ask.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
I don't. Thanks.
You know she do.
No.
She trying to be cute.
No.
But, Lawrence, how about you?
Yeah, I love how there's similarities with both of your experiences. And it seems like I don't want to claim like I know y'all and let me know, be like, bro, you don't know me, you don't know me, like that. But there seems like there's like this sometimes this struggle to show up as your full self in sometimes these spaces when you're dealing with both the barrier of ageism of both you being young, and then Erin, although you don't have that racial barrier like Shawnee does, you have that kind of social economic. So there's still some kind of like even though everybody black, there's somehow still a barrier with that. And so like my question is it's like is this something that just has to do with being young? Like, is this just the confessions of a young mental health professional / social worker? Or is this something that as do you think as you grow in time and you become more experienced that these voices or these barriers won't seem as loud of voices when it comes to doing your job and like the back and forth in your own minds?
You mean like the age stuff or the class stuff or like
Any of it, any of those barriers, do you feel like over time it will be something like you feel like you can be able to come in any space and feel like I can show up regardless of who I'm dealing with or what is in front of me, I can do it?
I feel like there's a yes and no to that. Like, again, something that they teach us in school is the importance of cultural competence. So for instance, like you said, my clients are all Black, but just because they're Black, I can't go in with the assumption that I understand their experiences. You know what I mean? And so, or in the same way, I could work with a white male and think that I know his experience as a white male just because he's a white male, but really we could have more of the same experiences than not. So I don't ever want to walk into a space with a client and assume I know their story, even if they come from the same background as me. you know, so I do want to be able to be like comfortable and knowing who I work with, or like you know, like working in different environments and stuff like that. But I don't ever want to make the assumption that just because this person is a Latino, or because this person is bi, or because this person is trans, that okay, well, I know how to interact with like this person because she's bi and she get, you know, so like it's like, nah, she could, you know. And so I think that's kind of where that is. And so even learning to ask a person about their culture and be like, hey, so like, what does it mean for you to be, you know, a bisexual white man? Like, what does that look like for you? Or what does it mean for you to be a Black woman in an upper class, you know, or, you know, so just being able to kind of let them tell their story instead of me assuming it. But I still want to be able to work with people no matter, and like be comfortable in those settings, no matter who the person is. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think for me, like I have to constantly recognize like all the different intersections that like come into play for my own identity, and know like, okay, this like different parts of my identity are gonna be a bit more like easier for me to navigate in certain settings, and they might be a barrier in certain settings. As much as I would like to hope that like, you know, yeah, like it's not a big deal that I'm Black, but it's like, no, there's certain like, you know, there's certain spaces that I'm like, if I'm driving here at night by myself in the boonies, I don't know, this is the spot for me if my car were to break down or something. And I think about just like yeah, for the future, I'm like, what would this look like for me? I still think like it's gonna be helpful, but at the same time, it's still gonna be a challenge, just depending on where I am, because it's all about the context. And I might be able to connect with some people better, but some things might always just get in the way. Honestly, they might always just kind of prohibit me from like really being my full self, because sometimes being my full self, like that's a level of vulnerability that like some people, to be honest, I don't feel as though they deserve. I and that's hard, because I'm just like, you know, I want to be my true and full self with people, but like it could be dismissed, and like it could be totally just negated in my experience, and I'm just like, okay, this is me like showing up and being vulnerable, and it being pushed to the side. And I mean, I've like, you know, read different things and watched different stuff about like, you know, just being your full self, but it's like, I think there's people who have that privilege, but I think for me, it's like there's certain things I have to do in order to just like, just in terms of survival, like just as Black people, like you do certain things to survive. And I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm not privileged. The fact that I like still have a job, and that my job is seen as valuable, and um, I'm able to like make ends meet and things like that. But it's still hard to like act as if like, okay, if this was all put to the side, and my economic status and things like that, I'm still Black and I'm still a woman, and these are things that are still going to be seen as like it's still gonna like marginalize me to an extent. Unfortunately, I want to, you know, think about things in an idealistic way, but there's certain places I'm just like, I'm not comfortable to be my full self, especially like in a workspace. Just depends.
And so also too, so then with all this pouring out that you guys do and this mental exhaustion that you guys go through, where do you guys go to get your cups refilled? Like, what do you do to get yourself back to, okay, I can do this one more time?
Y'all turn into journalists, all right? Proud of my team.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think I'm still looking, I still don't know, to be honest. Like, I'm still not 100%, if I'm real. Last month, like, me and a few friends, we went to Williamsburg. Cairo was there. And it was just, we were just Black women, and we were just all in one space. And we just wanted, like, just to get away from it all. And I think that was really helpful. I think there are times when I still just want to numb things, you know, like still seeing the Breonna Taylor stuff. It's like, yes, that's important, but it blows my mind. Like, every once in a while I'll see a post and I'm like, dang, like they really haven't done anything about that. That's ridiculous. And I think just seeing how it's even just kind of got to the point where you see stuff and it's almost kind of like expected to see a post, or, you know, like it just can be numbing. And so to answer your question as far as where do I go to get my cup refilled? It still is not filled up all the way. I think, yes, I don't know. I think being able to kind of, like, there have been times throughout this whole pandemic where I've just had to disconnect from social media. Or sometimes I just binge watch a show. And even that is something, you know, like I used to go to the gym and that would help me, except for we're in a pandemic. My gym, I'm not near my gym right now. Like, I'm in Richmond. My gym is in Virginia Beach. And I have injured my foot. And so, like, I can't even really exercise like I want to, you know. I know it's a whole thing. So yeah, that's where I'm at in 2020. But God is good.
Amen. We're praying for the Lord.
All the time. Yeah. I am still figuring that out. And it's like funny because like I talk to my teens about like, you know, we got to find coping skills, like wellness. Let's keep talking about it. How are you? Are you reflecting? And like, and like just praying with different people, like outside of work, just like in my own personal life and things like that. I feel like my cup, it doesn't feel completely empty, but it's not full. And it's just like, and I'm actively aware that I'm like, I can't pour from an empty cup, but there's moments where I know that I am. Like, I'm like sharing a scripture with someone and I'm like, this is for me. I'm sharing this with you, but this is low-key for me. I'm just like, I need to hear this. Like praying with other people. Because sometimes just like me doing it alone is just like, it's hard. Like I just need someone to kind of push me. I don't want to sound like a complete like downer, but I'm just like, it's just been hard. And running was normally something that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go run. I don't care to do it. I've been baking, and it's I've been like it's just experimenting with a lot of just sugary treats, and I need to chill with that. But like I've just been trying to talk to people who care about me and who will go there with me. Like not surfacey, like, oh, everything's good, but like really ask me the deep questions. And that's been helpful. And I think also just trying to grow and being intentional with like I'm going to like self-care. And that the word self-care is honestly like it's not making me cringe, but I'm just kind of like roll my eyes, like I just don't care. And the idea of refreshment, like self-care and refreshment, have just been like I'm struggling honestly. Vacationing, I don't know how to vacation. I never really had that privilege growing up to vacation. So like the fact that I have like benefit time, I'm like, what do I do with this? Like I don't know. But trying to make the most out of that and talk to people to kind of help me through that, because this sounds so bad, but like
But I think like it's absolutely 100% okay. Because I don't know if anybody has forgot, but we in the middle of a pandemic. And so I don't expect everybody to be able to do all the things. Like I think even for me or Sterling or Kyra, like even ourselves being able to find those spaces in which we are even able to just release, you know what I'm saying, from our daily jobs or our daily work or our mental, our mental health and all the different things that just come along with just being a human being, period. And so I think it's 100% okay that we don't have these perfect outlets, but as long as that there's something that we're going to that's healthy, like something to be able to like just get that release off and to just be able to just keep pushing for another day. So
Real.
not to put y'all in the hot seat, but y'all all the guests, and so this is what we do.
It's like, oh man, I gotta be honest. Like someone's gonna watch this and be like, Shawnee.
It's okay. We all struggle. They struggling too. They just don't want to admit it. They don't want to admit it.
I think that's real though. The fact that you like we're talking about how like just having to be reminded, okay, like we are in a pandemic and no one has this down perfectly. And I can just have to remember to give myself grace because I'm like, yo, like, okay, just, I don't have the, like Shawnee was saying, like, we talk to people about these things all the time. Oh yeah, just, use this coping skill or that coping skill. Meanwhile, ain't no coping skills being used on this end, except for I go and get a good meal, when I'm real stressed out. And too much of those will lead to a different issue. And so, yeah, I have to remind myself, like, and give myself grace that no one really knows what they're doing right now. Even though we're like a few months into this, it still is not normal. Like I was walking around actually today. I had to go into somewhere with the mask on, which I wear my masks all the time whenever I go into places. But I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're walking around here. It's a quadrillion degrees out here, and we have to wear masks on our face. Everyone looks crazy. I don't know who I'm looking at right now. You know what I mean? But every once in a while, it just hits me that this is our reality. But yeah.
When you smile at someone when you're wearing a mask, and I'm like, they can't even see me smile. Like, I just have these squinty eyes, and like, hopefully, like, I'm like staring you in the face. I'm like, I don't want you to think I'm like staring you down, but then you gotta like actively like wave or like say hi. Like it's just these masks.
Yeah.
That's so real. I be doing that at work because that used to be my I ain't gotta speak. Just
Right.
now he's like, I'm like hello. Hey, I'm saying hello. I'm staring you down.
Oh,
Or then there have been moments where I've tried to be cute. I don't put on makeup often, but there have been a few times, because it's like you're stuck in the house. I'm like, ooh, I want to look cute. And so, you put your little stuff on your face and the little lips look all nice. And then I remember when I'm out, I'm like, dang it, I have to put a mask on so you can't even see anyway. So, needless to say, one of my masks, it has like every time I wear that particular mask, I just so happen to have like lipstick or lip gloss on, and then my mask is discolored on the inside. So
that's real. Yeah. Just to wrap up here. So we do this thing as far as like, at the end of every podcast, as far as, just asking, as far as prayer requests. I phrased that wrong. We do a thing at the end of the podcast where we offer or ask for prayer requests. So, but we've been doing something different. So we'll go down the line, like with each person, just providing a 1 to 3 word prayer request, which is more difficult than you think, but just things that we could be praying for you for, and but it has to be between 1 to 3 words. So I guess we start with Erin. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think.
Ooh, that's one.
Eddie.
I'm messing with you. Just 1 to 3 words.
Life's transitions.
Okay. Shawnee, how about you?
Being intentionally refreshed.
Sentences.
Kyra?
Health, wealth, faith.
Monsieur Green?
God help me. Mayday. Sign out playing. Mine are alignment, opportunity, and consistency.
That's real.
Y'all have like themes.
Yeah, y'all cheated. You should have went first.
We practice,
Yeah.
This is our element. We do this like every week, Yeah,
y'all cheated.
I think we do. I would say God's timing. Yes.
What's third one?
Huh?
Oh wait, one to -3. So never mind. It's fine.
Yeah, I'd say that for sure. Ooh, but yeah, I guess we can wrap up here. I appreciate Shawnee, you and Erin again, just for just taking the time out and just opening up wounds, because I know this isn't super comfortable to talk about, and just being able to unpack those things. And just salute to you all, and Kyra as well. Just that Malcolm X quote, just Black women are like the most overlooked and most disrespected of us out there, and y'all still manage to be excellent and just navigate and to be so helpful, and I think I speak for Lawrence too. Like, as Black men, we appreciate you, and there's really nothing we can say to express our gratitude, because just you all do so much. So we're forever in debt to you, and we just appreciate you, and just continue being the inspirations that you all are. And I honestly know I'm gonna see y'all's names in the lights, and oh snap, we did a podcast with them, X amount of years ago, and so I know y'all are doing great things and will continue to do great things. So I appreciate you all, everything.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks guys for inviting us on here.
Yeah, thank you for having this platform and wanting to share this space with us. So
For sure. But yeah, if there's nothing else y'all want to add, stay up like gas prices in the summertime. Be well. There's a 40-year-old dad trapped in this body, so I apologize. But yeah, be well. I hope y'all's cups can be full soon, and just be healthy. Continue doing things that make you happy just to navigate it all. But yeah, y'all take care, and until next time.